Howdy folks, so I'm just going to introduce to you the first episode, which will talk about my mental health. It'll outline my sort of brief journey, how it all started, how it began. I'll talk about anxiety and depression, also suspected autism diagnosis, and what I've kind of been through generally. And at the end, I'll highlight to you 5 key points, 5 key takeaways from the episode that are designed to sort of help you. Now, they're not a substitute for medical advice, but it's just my 5 tips or 5 points I'd like you to sort of really take away from the episode. Please bear with me. The first episode is kind of freestyle, so I'm kind of just doing it on the fly. Okay, bear with me. The format will change as we go on, basically, and it'll hopefully improve the quality as we go on, really. But you've got to start somewhere, and that's my sort of guiding principle at the minute. Is you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? So, what a better place to start than the first episode there. It is 40 minutes long or thereabouts, so just bear with me for the first episode, and I will be splitting these episodes up as we go along. So thanks for listening, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. Bye for now. Howdy folks, how's it all going? How are you doing? So it's a very special episode because it's the first episode where I'll be talking a little bit more about my mental health. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Ash, and I'm creating this podcast, the Speak Up podcast, to raise awareness of mental health across the UK, sharing my own personal story, and also bringing guest speakers on to the podcast to discuss their own story and their own their own journey, really, in terms of mental health. So, as I've said in the trailer, it will be very nitty-gritty, and it's not for the faint-hearted. So if you are easily triggered, or if you're not in a very good place in your life, maybe, take some sort of precautions before you sort of listen to this podcast, really. Obviously, I won't be going into minute detail, but I wanted to give a sort of picture of what it's like to live with sort of mental health issues, low self-esteem, depression, and that sort of thing. So without further ado, I'll just get right into it, really. I won't mess around. So I'll start off by saying that I've had sort of anxiety, depression since I was very young. Started off around school age, sort of primary school. Now, for those that don't know, I was born with cerebral palsy, which is a physical disability affecting my balance, coordination, and at that time, certainly, my walking and things like that. I was in a wheelchair for, sort of short duration of my childhood. But obviously with physiotherapy and things like that, I managed to walk again. I was actually told that I'd never achieve anything. I'd never go to a normal mainstream school. I'd never, have friends. I'd never learn anything. Yeah, I wasn't destined to go to a mainstream school, and that I wasn't particularly bright, that sort of thing. Write me off on the scrap heap from the get-go, really. But obviously, over time, I gained that courage and that strength and determination to plough forward, really. I remember being a toddler, very small, in a pram, and being on buses and things like that when my mum took me to hospital appointments. And I remember being stared at, being looked at as though I was different. And that kind of imprinted itself on my psyche, as it were, and that gave me a sort of low confidence, low mood, even at a very young age. So yeah, it's been there from the very start, that kind of feeling of being different at school. As you all know, that, when you're at school, and if you've got ginger hair, if you're fat, if you wear glasses, if you've got funny shaped eyes or anything like that, you get picked on, right? That's normal. That's not abnormal. Most people get bullied at some point in their life, but for me, it was sort of chaotic and consistent. It was a consistent theme throughout sort of primary, secondary school, and even into my adult life to some extent. So I was born with a disability, so very much limited in my early life, but as things picked up as I got older. Now, this isn't going to be about autism. This episode really, it's mainly focused on mental health issues, and autism's actually not a mental health, or not regarded as a mental health issue. It can be comorbid with other things like depression and anxiety. Okay, but as I say, it's not about autism. But what I will say is that as a youngster in primary school, so between the ages of, I'd say, maybe 3 to, I don't know, 5 or 6, I remember not really feeling very social, not really fitting in with people, not making eye contact, feeling very, very nervous around social situations. It made it very difficult to make friends and things. And I remember being sort of in the sandpit or in the play area, whatever it may be, all the other kids would be playing, and it's very much a natural process of playing at primary school, and social sort of like connectedness is such a natural thing for young kids. They want connectedness and they want to play with other kids. But for me, it wasn't that I didn't want to play with other kids. I just lacked that piece of the puzzle, which made me feel as though I didn't know how to connect with other people. And it was quite difficult, and I faced a lot of rejection and a lot of anxiety, and I used to have panic attacks even at a very young age. And my mum would take me to children's parties of my classmates, and I wouldn't really engage. I'd get quite upset and stuff, and we had to leave early a lot of the time and things like that. And so it caused a lot of problems at school, particularly because I was very insular, very quiet child. I wasn't particularly stupid. In fact, to be honest, I always knew I was quite sort of advanced in some ways, but also not so advanced with the socialisation and socialising with kids. I didn't like small talk, even at a young age. I didn't like talking to people. I didn't really like presentations. What I really liked was reading and writing. I was very good at creative writing and poetry as well. I do remember standing up as a young boy, maybe 4 or 5, and every Friday in assembly, we'd get invited up to stand up and talk about something, and I got praised because I'd wrote a poem about my grandmother. Okay, and my grandmother was there along with all the other parents. It was a Friday afternoon assembly, and I wrote this poem about my grandmother. And that she had, I love my grandmother. She has a face like a crinkled brick. Okay, it sounds a bit odd, and that's because it probably was for someone of the age of 5 or 6. You don't really write poems like that, but I had such a passion for words and a passion for creative writing and things like that. I was very imaginative, and I was very ahead of the game in terms of like reading and writing at primary school. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I was ahead in some ways and a bit backwards in others. And I guess that was the first signs of autism. Now, what I will say about autism is that I don't have a full diagnosis just yet. However, I am actually being referred for full diagnostics for an assessment because I did score 10 out of 10 on a screening questionnaire in relation to autism. Now, autism's on a spectrum from pretty mild to pretty severe. The mild side of it is what was known as Asperger's. All right, Asperger's syndrome. And that's on the very mild end of things. And what that means is that basically you might come across as socially awkward and somewhat a little bit mildly impaired in terms of your socialisation and things like that. But it doesn't really have a general overall impact on your life. You might still be able to hold down the job and a career, and you might be pretty intelligent as well. The mild side of it, the Asperger's side of it, there's a lot of people out there that have this sort of syndrome. I've known quite a few people with Asperger's as well. One particularly famous example is Elon Musk. Elon Musk has autism. And there's others as well. So there is, I'm not sure if it's Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, one of the two. They also have autism. And I might be wrong about that, but certainly if you was to go to Google and put in famous celebrities with autism, you'll find that there's a lot of celebrities and a lot of really intelligent people with autism. So I'm not saying that if you've got autism, you're really super intelligent, but it's not uncommon, especially on the mild end of the spectrum. Now, obviously, there is Asperger's at the mild end, and at the very severe end, there's really severe autism, which is crippling, and it can interfere with your behaviour, with your mobility, with everything. And at the severe end, you might require carers and things like that. Right. So anyway, I'm kind of digressing here. I don't want to go too down the autism rabbit hole, but so I'm potentially suspected as having autism, and I've got no problem saying that in this podcast. It's just something for me to open up about, really, and just to say that throughout my childhood, it kind of makes sense because I didn't really get along with adults. I didn't get along with children. I got along with adults more because they're more predictable. It's more predictable. Adults were more predictable to me as a child than children were, because adults, they set the sort of rules, the social rules and things like that, and they're very direct and straightforward, whereas children can be quite spontaneous and things like that. But I won't go on too much about the autism, but the reason I mention that is because autism can occur with other illnesses like anxiety and depression. It's not uncommon for people with autism to have anxiety and depression because we still don't really understand autism. There's until very recently, when I was a kid at school, autism was quite rare, or at least at that time. But we're just coming to understand autism now, and there's been a lot of research into it. And there's a lot of people now that are my age. I was born in 1990, so I'm 32 now. But there's a lot of people in my year group at school that if you was to take all those people that I know from my year group at school, it's highly likely that some of those people may have autism or ADHD or another sort of neurodiverse condition. It's basically underdiagnosed autism. There'll be a lot of people out there that do have autism, but they've just not, for whatever reason, not been assessed. And so I'm potentially got autism, but also I've had anxiety and depression. Like I said, I didn't really like going to parties and things like that. It's very difficult for me to do that. But over time, as I got older, actually, my depression and anxiety actually sort of lessened as I got to secondary school. I got bullied, obviously, a bit more at secondary school because with my cerebral palsy, I walked with a limp. Obviously, people took the mickey out of that. I used to get called Peg Leg or Peggy. Okay, and some of you that might be listening, you might know who you are and who actually gave me that nickname. It wasn't very pleasant, but I got used to it. People knew me as Peggy. Even people that didn't go to my secondary school, they knew me as Peggy or your Peg Leg or whatever. And just for clarification, I don't have a wooden leg or I don't have an artificial limb. Not that there's anything wrong with that if you do, but just for the record there. So I was at secondary school and things were quite difficult. I found it difficult to make friends, as a lot of people do. And I had like a teacher's aide, teaching assistant to help me with classes and things like that, and that sort of thing. I was quite a shy child growing up. But then, because I got that support, that pastoral support with the teaching assistant, I was able to sort of live a relatively normal life, even though I was a little bit depressed, and things didn't really tend to get me down so much, really. And then I moved on to sort of college, and that's where I blossomed, and I met a group of friends who I was really close to, really close to, and I discovered a passion for graphic design and art and things. And those of you that are on my Facebook, you know that I'm into graphic design and art and things. And I've got a group page, Ashley John Martin Designs. So, some of you that are on my Facebook, you'll know about that. And I do logos and branding and things like that, visual identity for businesses and things like that. So check that out if you will, but this isn't a call to action to sell my work or anything. I just thought I'd mention that. But yeah, so I went to college, discovered I like graphic design because, it's not like other subjects, maths and English, where it's maths and science, where it's very much logic-based, rule-based. Art's very much kind of the world's your oyster, and that's your blank canvas, and you get to decide the rules and things like that. within the limitations of the client. And so I actually, really discovered that passion, really pushed myself, wanted to go to university and I was really into like perspective drawing, 3D stuff, branding, all the sort of visual stuff. And I really worked my arse off for 2 years. And I was really quite, to be honest with you, running off all cylinders. I was burnt out. I was depressed, not because I didn't enjoy the work, but because I really pushed myself, And I ended up getting into my first choice university. All right, and I remember the day that I came into college, and I said to the tutor, "Hey, look, I've just got into my first choice university," and the tutor turned around to me and said, "I'm really proud of you. Well done, Ash. You've done a really good job." And that was the first time in my life that anyone had said they were proud of me. And anyone had praised me. Sometimes I think that when you grow up with no praise and the expectations are low, like me, they born with a disability, so no one expects you to do anything like that. It's not never expected. But throughout my life, I've kind of pushed myself and had that resilience to move forward. And I got into the first choice uni, and that was really nice of him to hear that, to say to me, well done, Ash, I'm really proud of you. And at the end of that college course, so September 2011, I got a trophy for most improved student. And I was really flattered that I was awarded that, because I'd worked really hard. I weren't expecting that, but I ended up getting that, and I'm really pleased, and really pleased to hear, that it felt good to be congratulated like that, and everyone needs that in their life. They need that positive reinforcement, and that's the problem with a lot of people that maybe are depressed and anxious, is that they've never had anyone say to them, what, well done, man, like you've done really well, you should be so proud of yourself, really proud. I'm not saying it's the case for everyone, but you need that positive feedback loop. There's people in the world where nothing goes right in their life, and unfortunately, sometimes that moment comes, sometimes it doesn't, but you need that continuous positive loop. For a lot of people that haven't experienced poor mental health, low self-esteem, low self-worth, right? They've had bad thing after bad thing after bad thing go wrong in their life, okay? And they don't know what it's like to be praised, and they don't know what it's like to experience anything good. People that haven't experienced anything mental health wise, they might actually, they don't know what it's really like, because they've had positive thing after positive thing happen. Sorry, I've just realised I got it the wrong way around. So those that haven't suffered from mental health, like I say, or anything like that, they don't have any awareness of it. They're quite naive. Okay, they've always sort of had good things happen and been quite fortunate. All right, not saying they haven't had bad things happen to them, but the way they react is quite different, because they've always had that positive feedback loop of, nothing bad's happened to me. So therefore nothing bad's happened to me, so therefore I don't expect anything bad to happen to me. And their behaviour becomes one of positivity, It's learned behaviour. It's kind of learning from not what the universe gives you, but reacting to what the environment gives you. And if you've been brought up in a household that is pretty well adjusted in a stable parental family home, you're not going to have the same problems as someone that comes from a broken home, someone whose parents in prison, or someone's parents who are divorced. You're not going to have that same problem, right? I'm not saying there isn't problems in married homes and things like that, but there is. But you're not going to have the same problem. So it's a cycle that perpetuates itself. Everyone needs enough of that positive energy and that feedback in their life to feel good, right? And that's what was starting to happen, where my tutors said to me, well done, Ash, I believe in you, and I had a solid group of mates. It was really, really great. And then I got to university, right? And I started to isolate myself, because I was looking around and I was thinking to myself, okay, these people, they're really, really talented people. These people that I'm surrounded by, absolutely a heads and shoulders above me, or at least I thought that, right? And I started to doubt myself and compare myself, right? Because the problem was that up until that point, I'd had a lot of, I guess I'd had a lot of praise on the course, and it made me feel really, really freaking good, right? Because, I was getting that good energy from that praise and things like that, and from achievements. I was getting the feel good factor from external achievements. So the fact I won a place at my first choice university, the fact that I graduated, finished the course at college with a triple distinction grade, the fact that also people were saying they were proud of me, and for the first time in my life I thought, wow, you know what, well done Ash, man. And it was an internal thing rather than an external thing that I started to cultivate, right? But unfortunately, as I got through sort of the first year of university, I was isolating myself from people, right? Really isolating myself, right? And it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what that means is that because I was doubting myself, all right, and I was isolating myself, other people were reacting to that around me, and it was kind of creating my reality, So if you want to know about self-fulfilling prophecies, it's like a psychological concept, give it a Google and you'll know what I'm talking about. But, I don't expect you all to be psychologists or anything like that, but I was creating my own reality and people were reacting to my behaviour around me, and that was what was really creating the storyline for me. So I wasn't going out into the world with a lot of confidence. I was doubting myself. These people were really bloody talented, really talented people. I had a lot of respect for them, but I just didn't have enough respect for myself because I was getting praise from external things. So other people were telling me I was really great, right? And I was getting these trophies and these awards. The problem was I wasn't telling myself that I was great. So while there was an internal change within myself, I needed to tell myself I was great, and I needed to back myself, and I needed to be that positive person. I needed to fight my own corner, because at the end of the day, folks, right, you must back yourself 100% because no one else will at the end of the day. That's the sad, harsh reality of the world we live in. You've got to back yourself 100%. And then once you start to back yourself, people pick up on that energy and they're like, yeah, you know what, this guy bloody knows what he's talking about. Let's back him. Let's back him, really. So this, I really, is what it's called self-worth. And you all know what that is, and self-esteem. You need to get your self-esteem from within yourself, not from external things, and that's the hardest part, especially if you've been brought up with dysfunctional families, or if you've suffered trauma or anything like that. And we'll talk more about that as the podcast goes on. But yeah, if you suffer trauma, abuse, if you've suffered depression, anxiety, anything like that, right? Or, your family split up, or you witnessed arguments as a child, sometimes you don't have the best self-esteem and the best self-worth. Which is what I was saying, though, that those people that were brought up in that environment, they don't have the best means of cultivating self-worth. And by contrast, people that have never experienced that will never understand, right? So it's all a positive or a negative feedback loop, right? I don't want to get too hung up on the jargon, on the psychological jargon, but that's the basics of it, is that you need to generate your self-worth and cultivate your self-worth from within. Every day you need to do something that makes you feel bloody good. It doesn't matter what other people think about it. If you want to, one of my hobbies used to be spoon carving, right? So I liked wood carving, woodcraft, right? And I don't give a freaking damn what people say about that. That's something I enjoyed. It's quite quirky, quite unconventional, but, so what? I enjoy that. I used to write poetry, when I was a kid, and sometimes I still dabble in that now. I won't be sharing any of that with you, though. So you need to do something for you, basically. Do something for you, right? And even if it means getting up in the morning and saying to yourself those affirmations, say, yeah, I am a good person, I am capable. And even just writing a list down of all your positives and what you bring to the table, what you bring to other people, and that sort of thing. And even if you're that depressed and you're that down, focus on other people. Focus on helping other people. Put value out there into the world that's going to help other people, right? whether that's volunteering, helping people, whether that's listening to someone's problems, whether that's smiling at someone while you wait for the bus. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You might make that person's day by smiling at them, right? So, yeah, so I guess my point is that you need the self-worth, and I didn't have that at university, right? Didn't have that, right? So I ended up dropping out, right, in 2011. Not sorry, 2011. My apologies. So it would have been sort of the 2012 or 2011. I can't remember the summer of, right? So I started in the September 2011, and I dropped out the following year. It would have been probably maybe March time, 2012, right? And I came home to Scarborough, back to Scarborough, right? Got in touch with an old mate of mine, and I decided, after much thought, that I would re-enroll at a university in my hometown and try again, basically, because that's the sort of person I am. If I get knocked down, I try again. I keep trying until I succeed, right? And that's what I did. With the help of a friend, I managed to get in there and go back to uni, and it was a real struggle, real struggle, right? But I got through the course, not without its challenges. I was still anxious and depressed, and I was seeing a therapist privately, and that was helping me a lot. And then, finished university 2016. I then moved away from Scarborough with a partner, now ex-partner. I won't go into that too much because this isn't a podcast about blaming other people, but moved away to Manchester there and lived there somewhat functional and happy until it didn't work out, basically. And at the time, summer 2019, all right, so I'd lived in Manchester for a number of years at this point, and I'd landed a new job in the July 2019, right? And I was very nervous. I'd had a panic attack on public transport, and I started to develop paranoid ideas and beliefs about myself, and that people didn't want me around and people were avoiding me, right? And I won't go into the specifics, but that was the general gist. And it was causing a lot of aggro, a lot of panic attacks, right? A lot of panic attacks. And I was turning up late, right? And I wasn't meeting targets because when I was in the office, right next to people, I couldn't cope and I couldn't take out these thoughts out of my brain. I couldn't take anything in, basically. And then by the August 2019, I'd been in that job a month. My partner left me. Partner of 6 years left me there, right? Now, try not to sound too bitter about this, but basically that totally destroyed me because not only did I have mental health issues and I was developing paranoia, right? At that time, it totally threw me, right? So I went from earning a fairly decent salary to being unemployed again, right? And I was drinking a lot in the house on my own. Didn't have any friends there because all my friends were here in Scarborough, right? No family there, right? So I was drinking every flipping day. I think I was about 28, 29 at the time, right? And I thought, you know what? The house was full of rubbish, full of all our furniture, our pets. I had to take my cats to the cattery, get rid of them, say goodbye to them, which was very painful. I had to then sell all my furniture on Facebook, right? And yeah, pretty rubbish time for me, if I'm being really honest with you. I was, quite depressed. I was having some dark thoughts, and I thought my life was over, basically, right? And so, yeah, so either sold all the furniture on Facebook, or I got broke it down and then tried to get rid of it. Had to sort of hire a skip as well to get rid of that, and I was on Universal Credit. Unfortunately, they closed my claim. I can't remember what the reasons were, but I did abide by the rules. I just can't really recall what the problem was with that. But I was probably 8 weeks away from being homeless, so I had to get my mother to come and collect me, along with my uncle's help, to get me back to Scarborough. So that's what happened. So we're now at 2019 November, just before COVID hit. And I was quite depressed and isolated, and I never left the house because of these paranoid ideas that I have, which I still have to this day, by the way. And my behaviour's changed quite a lot, not for the best either, but I do try and manage it the best I can, right? And paranoia is such an awful feeling. It makes you hostile, makes you angry, right? And I don't for 1 second want people to be angry, or no, not angry, rather scared of me. By the way, this is just me getting it off my chest and telling you my story because I want to be able to help other people and be honest and open about what my struggles are and how, to some extent, I'm not getting the support that I need. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about giving people a voice that don't feel supported, right? So anyway, November 2019, right? I'm unemployed. I'm living at my mum's house, right? Sleeping on the sofa in the living room, right? Which is not ideal, but you know what? It's better than sleeping on the streets freezing cold, right? And pretty much went through COVID, pretty isolated, actually. It's pretty bad. It's a pretty rotten feeling, man. My mental health's getting worse, right? Because I'm not leaving my house, right? And I'm paranoid. And I'm talking to people less and less and becoming more isolated, right? So basically, I'm, to all intents and purposes, just feeling really paranoid and depressed and down. And throughout this whole time, it gets to, it's all COVID going on. We're in lockdown anyway, so I guess I'm kind of also, my behaviour is normalised because everyone's inside, right? Everyone's isolated and inside the house, right? And so it's not so much abnormal, but it kind of makes me feel better because everyone else is in lockdown. We're in lockdown, right? And no one sees me, so therefore, they're not too bothered. It's COVID. Everyone's inside. It's not abnormal. People aren't asking, where's Ashley? And it gets to sort of end of 2020 and I apply for a job in the civil service as a work coach, right, for a government department. And I got the job in February 2021, and my salary was, it was remarkably increased to my previous role, and I did very well, and I helped a lot of people. Right, I wanted to do that job because I wanted to help people. Unfortunately, when I was in the office, I was getting these paranoid ideas, and that no one wanted me to be around, and people were repulsed by me. Particularly, I felt that people didn't want me around, and I was getting more and more depressed. I couldn't connect with people. It's that connection, and people, I felt people didn't want to connect with me either, And I made one or two mates there. Really good people. I always have time for those people. They know who they are, right? But obviously, became ill, and I had to come away from work. I had to sign myself off, basically, and a few things happened which I regret with my behaviour that I did, and I almost sort of got into trouble for it, but I didn't, right? And it kind of wasn't a good time for me, man. I mean, I was off sick with full pay, which is good, but then obviously that job had to come to an end, and had things been different and I'd been in a better mind frame, I'd have actually carried on with that job, but I decided that I couldn't do it anymore, right? So that was that, really. That's my story up to now. That's my story, and I managed to get some savings together and live off that. But unfortunately, I've not been supported in the best way with the services, and I won't go into that because that's another story for another day, folks. So I want to keep this short, but I want to give you 4 pointers, right? 4 pointers to help you, right? And to sum up this story is, it doesn't matter what other people think about you. This is the first point. It doesn't matter what other people think about you. It matters what you think about yourself and what you tell yourself, what your inner voice says to you, right? You need to be your biggest motivator. You need to back yourself, man, because no one else is going to back you, right? Number 2, your thoughts are not reality. Your feelings are also not reality. Because your feelings are your feelings. You don't know what other people are thinking about you or feeling about you, right? And this is a hard one to grasp, even for me. I have a hard time grasping this one, especially with paranoia and stuff. It's about fact-checking, basically, check the facts, Thirdly, get support from your GP, it goes without saying, whether you need to be on medication or therapy. And it's a long, hard fought battle with the NHS at the minute. And I don't for 1 minute blame them. They're having a hard time, and I'm guilty of ranting about that, that I don't get the support that I need. But it's across the board and across the country. And I admire the NHS. I've always been a great supporter of the NHS. It does have its downfalls, but I'm not here to criticise the service. Point 4, right? So, do something every day to help yourself, whether that's getting out of the house, whether that's reading a book, whether that's spoon carving, right? Whether that's lighting your favourite scented candle, right? Whether that is having a cup of tea, whether it's treating yourself to some sweets or taking yourself for a day out somewhere. Do something every day that makes you feel good, and do something for your future. Whether you're putting value out there, whether you create a podcast, whether you create stuff for people, just do it, man. Just do it. All right. So that's the things that I want you to take away from this, is that your value as a person, your self-worth should come from within. You do something every day to make yourself feel better, right? And also, don't believe that your feelings are factual, because they're not. They're your feelings. They're not someone else's feelings. You don't know how other people are feeling, right? And get professional help, right? So I'll leave that there for today. We're about just over 30 minutes long here, right? So I want to leave it here for today. I've not gone into minute detail. Maybe I'll pick that up in another episode. But I do envisage that we will be getting guest speakers on. This episode was a bit about me, really, okay? And that's all it was really intended for, just to give you a bit of a breakdown of who I am, all right, as a person, right, and the disability that I have and conditions that I have, basically. So, you know, as you've heard, I've got anxiety and depression pretty severely, and sort of paranoia and social phobia, and I guess to some degree agoraphobia, which isn't diagnosed. It's just something that I'm pretty certain that I have, seeing as I don't really go out very much. And that's one other thing, actually, that I didn't mention, is try and find a sense of community, or be surrounded by people every day, even if it's just talking to someone over the phone. You need it. You need social interaction. We're all human. We need that. And one final point I want to make is that, as a disclaimer, you know, any information within this podcast is not a substitute for your doctor. Going to see your doctor about any problems. It's not medical advice. I'm not a medical practitioner, right? But I'm just here in good faith, trying to help you get through it the best that I can. All right, so that's what this podcast really is. I wouldn't call it entertainment value, because there's no entertainment in portraying to you my suffering and what I've been through, right? But I want people to know that they're not alone, all right? And you must seek your GP's medical professional advice, all right? So I'll leave it there for now, folks. Thanks for listening to me, all right? I'd appreciate if you'd like and subscribe to my social media channels on Facebook. I will put this on YouTube as well, all right? It might take me a bit of time, but I'll put this on my personal Facebook, on the Speak Up podcast page, and I'll put it on the YouTube as well. And it'll also be available on Spotify and all the other major Spotify platforms, you know, so it'll be on Spotify, on Apple Music as well. So yeah, any inquiries about the podcast, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, or however you want, really. Okay, and please share this message in this podcast. I'd really appreciate it, guys. All right, so you take care, guys. All the best, and I'll look forward to hearing from you. I'll look forward to you listening to episode 2. All right, which I'll release a trailer for episode 2 once I've got the kind of the ball in motion with that. But this is just a quick introduction, really, about me and about my life and why I'm doing the podcast, all right? And I'll keep these podcast episodes fairly short. I think I envisage it to be about 40 minutes long at the most, but I'll try and keep future episodes 20-30 minutes long, and the shorter the possible, the shorter the best, rather, sorry. And I'm keeping it kind of freestyle as well, so I'm not going to be editing it too much. I want to keep it conversational and flowing, all right? So I appreciate you for taking the time to listen to this. All the best, folks, and look forward to seeing you in episode 2. Bye for now. Thanks for listening, folks, to the first episode. And now what I'd like to do is just draw your attention to the 5 takeaway points that I mentioned towards the end of the episode in relation to, at the end of every episode I'll be providing you with a series of key points I want you to take away as a kind of the purpose of the podcast, really. So the 5 key points here right now are: number 1, it doesn't matter what other people think. So it matters what you tell yourself and what you think about yourself. What's your opinion of yourself, all right? That's what matters for building your self-worth and things like that, is what you tell yourself, not what other people tell you. Right, so number 2, your thoughts and feelings are not reality. Your thoughts and your feelings, they're your own. They belong to you. Don't project your feelings and your thoughts onto other people, all right? Your thoughts and your feelings are your own. That's not reality. You don't know what other people are thinking about you. It might be something completely different. Now, there is a small chance that you are right and people do feel those things towards you. But unless you've asked them, there's no guarantee of that. So your thoughts and your feelings are not reality. And that's often why people get paranoid, is they don't fact check. It's about fact checking. So what's reality and what isn't, Number 3, get professional support from your GP if you can. I know the system's overrun and under-resourced at the minute. Get whatever support you can, whether it's talking to your friend, seeing a therapist, talking to your GP, getting medication, whatever works for you. Get support, whether it's through a voluntary organisation, through the NHS, or privately if you can afford to do that. We'll talk more about that in later episodes, about the differences in the quality between private therapy and the NHS. I'd like to do an episode on that because I've got some personal experience of that. Number 4, do something every day that makes you feel good. So that's about hobbies, it's about interests. I mentioned in the episode I used to do spoon carving, basically, woodwork and things, and I don't really give a damn what other people think about it, and that's the attitude you should take. You do whatever you need to do. You do you, basically, So do something every day that you want to do, that you like to do, that makes you feel good. It could be sports, it could be any type of hobby you can think of, really. But the idea is you do something for you in the present that makes you feel good, but even better, do something for your future. So whether it's sending off that email to that employer that you really want to work for, that company, whether it's updating your CV, whether it's producing design, whether it's making a podcast, whether it's volunteering to help young people, whether it's whatever it is, something that sets you up for your future and adds value to you as a person and helps other people, the more the merrier, So do something that gives you a good feeling, feel good factor, right? And number 5, which I missed off in the original sort of recording, is find a sense of community. And that, what I mean by that is socialise, be around people if you can. I know it's hard when you've got anxiety and depression, but that means virtually, that means participating in online forums, that means ringing your best friend, if that means, I don't know, just watching YouTube, you've got to feel part of something, part of a community. We need social interaction as humans, so that's the point of that, really, is that find a sense of community, find that person that will listen to you. So yeah, they're the 5 key points that I want you to take away. But above all, it should come from within, this positivity. This is what you're trying to cultivate, is that positive feeling that comes from within. And the only way you're going to do that is actually by taking small steps every day to come out of your comfort zone. And I'm still on that journey, and I'm guilty to some extent. So actually, in me admitting that in this podcast, I'm actually holding myself accountable to some extent. So thanks for listening, folks. That's the 5 key takeaway points. I'm going to end this podcast. Look forward to having you on episode 2. I'll do another trailer explaining that and previewing that for the next episode. But for now, you take care, folks, and bye-bye for now.